Hey, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're here. Rex Krueger is our guest tonight. He has over 300,000 subscribers on his channel, and he's going to be with us in about 11 minutes. So join us tonight. If you're watching this on replay, you may want to fast forward to the 10-minute mark. And unless you're watching live, then enjoy the countdown.
Just buying that software isn't what makes the difference. You've got to learn to use that tool, just like you've got to learn to use your high-end Powermatic woodworking tools or Festool for Sedge out there.
So I think you got to kind of leverage all of it.
And I just realized this is a new camera. I didn't take off the protective plastic over it, so I don't know if that was blurry or not for you. Oops.
Oh, hey, look at that.
In your little intro, which was very well put together, as I was sitting backstage and you had all these little clips from your previous guests, there was lots of good information in there, but somebody mentioned, just finding that thing that you love and do the thing you love. Don't make things that you don't like making.
In terms of growing a business, especially a business where you make things, is make the things you want to sell. I want to say Brad Rodriguez said this many times a while back, where it's like, if you don't want to sell cutting boards, stop making cutting boards. If you want to sell tables, make some tables and sell them at a loss if you have to, just to get some tables out there you sold. You attract clients that you can show you've actually made a thing. If you're trying to sell couches, don't keep making coasters telling people you can make couches. Make some couches.
A lot of times, usually when people start out on YouTube or when they're building a YouTube channel, they'll feel like their energies, if it's a scale of 1 to 10, they'll feel like they're at like an 8 or a 9, and they'll be like, woohoo! But then when they actually watch themselves on camera, it's actually more like a 2 or 3.
We do take sponsors, especially as a lot of the smaller channels. And there's two ways they talk about sponsorship. Sponsorship is someone paying you to do something, and the other one is getting free tools and stuff.
Launch day is my favorite day. That is my favorite day of the week. I just absolutely love launching videos and getting the feedback. So yeah, that's most videos take 4 to 5 full days to make, and I would like to streamline that. I would like to put out more videos in a week.
It's really kind of sad because I didn't get involved even when he was doing the noodle boards. He pretty much did all that. I did everything in the house so that he could stay in the shop a lot.
I am a little conflicted, I think. It initially started off with just sharing like my sewing machines and sewing tips and stuff like that. And then it kind of morphed into sharing the Mastering Mayhem merch items that I was making. And then along the way, I kind of shared some DeWalt tool and obsessions that I've had.
Hats off to Ira. I mean, I can't imagine doing it with small kids. That's a lot of work.
Well, this is a little chaotic, so.
My part really didn't start until Live Edge started. When we started Live Edge, I don't know, I felt different about everything. It felt real to me. I think everything started feeling real to him, after the first few months because he was in the shop. It didn't really feel real to me until Live Edge started. And now I see this as my future too. I don't think I'll be a teacher much longer.
Because I wasn't quite niched enough, but I think because my channel name is I Don't Even Work Here, I think I'm just going to roll with.
I'm going to put out some shorts for stage.
One thing I'm good at probably more than anything else is business and understanding the way businesses work and how to run a business. And I always come at from very much the money ball approach. I don't want to hit home runs. I just want to get on base and get on base and get on base.
And I think it's easier for people to look at my story, for example, or anybody like in a similar story and think that was an easy decision. And I can't state how much that was a very hard decision for both my wife and I.
I like the premise of doing a tool review, comparing two tools, and especially if they are popular tools.
You can make the life you want to, you can make the business you want to, whatever it is you want to make.
It wasn't like YouTube's good and this and that. Like I was still pretty new to YouTube and didn't know that was sustainable long term, and so it was a gamble. And I'd worked for a long time to get in the position I was at, and it was a very, very hard decision to basically give that up for potentially the rest of my life.
I never even considered the second channel. I just think all of my content needs to go where I am.
It's a lot of risk and fear, but moving through those deliberately.
So there's a system to it, and you follow that system.
So what have you learned and done to try to change? And so that's the thing I always use. It's a continuous process of evolution.
Scheduling and trying to edit and get a video out, like it's really hard to follow exactly. If you do that and do it consistently, it'll generate views.
Interesting. A lot of times you might see channels or businesses that are frustrated because they're not growing, and you look and you realize that for years or dozens of iterations, you look at the most recent and you go back a few years or a few dozen iterations and there's zero change.
I'd like to see channels evolve into more of like a channel, like we're traditional like TV channel, where you have a channel, but there's different shows within that channel. And, you know, you could have the segment for your shorts or your live streams and your longs, you know, all these different things that people can kind of just pick and choose what they want to watch.
And my goal isn't to get the most views on YouTube. My goal is, you know, to provide confidence, inspiration, and knowledge through entertaining and engaging content. So
what's the next step? What is the next thing? What's going to get you to that next place?
You got to get them to click. You got to get them to watch. I'm terrible at thumbnails. I hate doing them. I would stress so bad over doing them. I've actually hired somebody else to do them now. That's why they look different. I'm not doing them anymore. I took that out of my hands, and I'm stress-free on that part.
Another thing is also onboarding people that are better than me at something. So I have an editor I've been working with for about 2 years now.
One day it just kind of hit me that, okay, I watch a lot of these videos and I obviously find value in them. Why can I not be the person on the other side of the camera, right? Providing the content and the information.
With me being a business-minded individual and trying to make sure that I'm providing for my family, but also always growing.
Our audience smells authenticity, and whether or not you're enjoying what you do very easy.
I'll always be that individual that loves YouTube, that always wants to do extremely detailed videos on how to build.
I feel like the biggest challenge is probably getting yelled at to put on protective.
I'm still focused on my woodworking. I'm focused on trying to get better. I just want to try new things and break barriers and just be the best woodworker I can be, and then document that. I just don't really have the time or desire to really become a student of YouTube. So I'm always playing catch up. I'm always just doing the best I can to get the most out of what we're doing, but I am no student of YouTube, that's for sure.
A good plan of attack is to create a channel on YouTube or an account on YouTube that you don't have any ties to. You've never watched anything on there, and just start watching content you're interested in on that channel. Don't watch the news, or don't click off and start watching, you know, the latest episode or whatever. Just use that account strictly for that, and that'll kind of start jumping up what's being surfaced to people, and then from there you can kind of,
you know, as far as equipment goes, and I say this adamantly all the time, there is nothing I've ever made that I couldn't make by hand. You know, and I have a skill set that I've developed that I could make it by hand. Does having a CNC make it faster? You bet it does.
The big change that I've seen is that people have gotten even shorter attention spans than normal. So if you are going to start a YouTube channel and you're going to start recording yourself working, keep the pace really, really fast. People get bored super quick, and when they get bored, they either start tapping those arrow keys to speed through the video, or else they'll just drag the slider across the screen so that they can speed through and skip to the end and see what you've built. But if you want to engage them throughout the whole video, you've got to keep the pace really, really fast.
basically structure your channel so that you generate more views. They watch one video, they're going to watch the next, the next, the next. If you look, and you can tell the difference I can see it in my analytics. I can see it in the way my channel's structured.
The first thing that I would recommend to anybody, and this of course applies to any niche that you're looking to start a channel for, is before you even take the first steps in terms of researching and all that, which we'll talk about in a second, I would have a really honest conversation with yourself about what you're looking to get out of the channel and what your expectations are.
As a rule of thumb, post-production takes 6 times recorded footage length. Not shoot time, but recorded footage length. So if you record a 5-minute clip, it's going to take you a minimum of 30 minutes to edit that 5-minute clip, even if you only edit down into 30 seconds, because you have to watch it, then you make some notes, and then you watch it again, you make some cuts, and you watch it again, and then when it fits into the timeline, by rule, you're going to see that same clip roughly 6 times.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. It's Monday nights. We're here trying to make Monday nights great. I got a great guest for you. Rex Krueger is going to be here in just a moment. Let me remind you of a couple of things first. Real quick, remember the chat is where it's at. That's where you can talk it up with each other. That's where you can talk it up with our guest and with me, and we will try to answer any questions. But if you do have a question, please put a Q at the beginning of the comment, and that helps us identify it and try to get your questions answered. If you're celebrating a milestone, please put an M at the beginning of your chat message so that you can do like the Dad Cave and share a new milestone on his channel, just past 800 subscribers. That is awesome, Dad Cave. You make some great projects, and I enjoy your content. Keep it up, and we look forward to celebrating with others on their milestones. Let me get in here and introduce our guest. Rex Krueger is the guest tonight. He has over 300,000 subscribers on his channel. He has 214 videos, and those videos have been watched over 32 million times. And 5 of his videos have over 1 million views each. How incredible is that? Rex is a maker of beautiful and exciting things. He works with all kinds of materials. If you've watched his channel, you know that, and he utilizes everything from power tools and hand tools and is very creative. And that being said, let's welcome Rex to the channel. Hey, Rex, how are you?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. So, Rex, where are you located at?
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and proud to be here.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And you started working with wood, doing maker items. How long? Over a decade ago. I mean, I don't know how long ago exactly.
Yeah, I have an interesting history with that. I grew up in a super mechanical family. My dad and let me go back even further. My great-grandfather and my grandfather were both machinists. And
Okay.
my grandfather was a master tool and die maker. He immigrated here from Hamburg, Germany in 1904 and spent, I think, 40 years in the machining trade. And his dad was a machinist too. And my father professionally was in sales, but what he loved was cars. And he passed that love on to my brother. And my brother and my dad were just cars the whole time I was growing up. And man, I don't like cars at all. They don't interest me one bit. But I also grew up on an old farm, and we didn't have crops, but we had big vegetable gardens, and my mom had a flower business. She used to sell flowers. And so I did a lot of that stuff. We did carpentry and plumbing and electrical and all the work to keep the place up, and gardening and raking hay and fixing antique tractors. Honestly, I just put up with that stuff. It didn't interest me one bit. It was just part of my childhood. What I really liked was drama. I used to be in plays. I liked that. I liked books. I played the guitar, and I was in bands, and I liked that. And my life was totally in that direction. And I was really, once I got to college, I was really into school, and I wanted to do that to the best of my ability and be a teacher eventually. And then somewhere along in my 30s, and I think it was because the maker thing got going and I started seeing people on YouTube doing exciting things, I just suddenly got interested in it. And when I kind of got out in my garage and started fiddling around, I was like, wow, I know how to do a lot of this stuff. You know, and I didn't really think I did. And it took actually getting out there and putting hands on materials. And I was like, you know, I picked up an awful lot of stuff as a kid and a teenager, just helping out at home. When I want to make something, I can usually do it. And that's what got me going, making stuff around the house and then doing stuff with guitars, because I've played electric guitar for 25 years and they're fun to build and modify. And I was doing that. And that's just when YouTube was really getting going, especially guys like Steve Ramsey and Jimmy DiResta was a big influence on me. And as time went on, I just started feeling like, oh, I think I want to do what these guys are doing. And so that's how I got started with it.
Yeah. So when did you publish your first video?
2017, March of 2017.
Yeah. So a lot of folks may see some YouTubers out there with 200, 300 plus thousand subscribers like you have, and they're like, well, it came easy to them. But you've put in the reps. You have a lot of videos. Whenever you first started, how did you gain your confidence level to make videos? Had editing videos been something you'd done before?
Never. What I had been before that was an English teacher. And I was an English teacher for 11 years, and I really liked it. And I taught on the university level, and I had really sweated my way through grad school, which I didn't really enjoy. And then I got a job teaching, and I thought, oh, I really don't like universities as much as I thought I did, and the meetings and all the stuff I had to do. And so I got out, but I had that confidence from teaching. I knew that I could stand up in front of people and speak well. The technical part of it was a total mystery to me. And if you want to torture me, you could tie me to a chair and make me watch my first 50 videos. And I will break out in a cold sweat of embarrassment and shame at the painful quality of those videos, because I didn't know anything. And the color and the white balance and the brightness, the sound, it's just all atrocious. And luckily, YouTube at that time was a place where you could sort of fail your way up. You could keep working and slowly improving. And thank goodness I had the opportunity to improve, because, man, if I came out now with videos at that level of quality, nobody would pay any attention. I was very fortunate to get into it when I did, when people would take you seriously with a lot of technical flaws in your videos. And I think maybe my ability to speak well maybe carried me through some of those rough early times when the videos were not that good, man.
Well, I think there was probably a transition, but you'd been used to talking to a group. How different was it talking to the camera than talking to your classroom full of students?
Man, that's a really good question. It was so different. You know, I loved the classroom environment, and I still miss it, to be honest with you. But when you're up in front of a room of bright, energetic young people, they're giving you so much back. You can just tell their facial expressions, and they're answering questions, and you can see if they're engaged or not. You can see if you're losing them and you're thinking, oh, I got to switch it up. This isn't working. I got to go in a different direction. I got to modulate, make it louder, softer, whatever. You get so much back from them. And even right now, I mean, if I take you away, I mean, this is what shooting a video is like. It's just me in an empty room by myself, and you got to recreate that. And I usually imagine an audience. That's sort of my trick, is I just imagine there are people, because I did that for a long time. And that's what got me through. But man, again, if you watch those early videos, man, I am stiff as a plank. It's painful. The way I'm talking and the speed that I'm talking at is just, oh, it's brutal. So yeah, there was a lot of transition. I thought I was going to be loose and be just be in it right away. And that was not true. It was a long learning curve.
Yeah, it's kind of like whenever we had Nate from Channel Makers on here, he said most people think that they're getting on camera and they're at a level 9 out of 10 on energy. He said then they watch the replay and they're really at a level 2, you know. So I think that's the same kind of thing. You think just you're going to get up there and give a presentation just like you would to a classroom, but it's a lot different looking into that, you know, that cold eye of the camera. You know, there's no instant feedback from your audience. And like you said, you can't read the audience and see whether you're retaining their attention. But your experience as a classroom teacher, I'm sure you had to prepare lessons to teach, and part of that outlining for those lessons had to be, how am I going to get across value that the students need to learn? How is that carried over to the value proposition that you carry to your audience on YouTube?
I think when it comes to value, the most important thing to think about is audience. And when you first start putting out videos, you don't know who's watching them. And then over time, especially when you're a newer creator, you really have the luxury to look at those comments and to engage with people, which is very valuable. And I have a hard time doing it now because I'm going in 16 directions. But reading the comments and seeing what people have to say, that they'll just tell you what they want, and you have to develop the ability to weed out people who are trolling or who are saying unhelpful things. But a lot of other folks will just say, hey, this was a great video, but I can't do this project because I don't have X, Y, and Z. I have these other things. How do I do it? It's very easy to ignore those people. And I think a lot of people do. They think, well, look, if you don't have these tools, you're not serious. You're not a woodworker. But another way to think about it is, well, how could you make this with a screwdriver, a hacksaw, a hammer, and a circular saw? Like, how are we going to make that work? And I think if you're fortunate, that's like a fun technical challenge.
Absolutely. So I've watched your videos, and you have a variety of tools. You have the hand planes, and you do. But you have a saw stop table saw.
Yep.
And a lot of variety in between.
Yep.
And a lot of people would hear, hey, he's got a saw stop. He probably has top end equipment all around. But like, isn't, or at least wasn't, your lathe from like Harbor Freight?
Yep.
I mean, so you really have a variety of tools. How did you come to select the tools that you use?
So, when I first got into woodworking, I was sure I needed a table saw. And I had a table saw for a while. I was lucky my dad had one in the attic that he had gotten through a sales competition. He got some points for selling stuff. And so he ordered this table saw and never took it out of the box. And it was a little Craftsman. And that thing was a Widowmaker. And it's an experience that I really want to try and keep other woodworkers from having, which is buying an inexpensive small table saw, which is extraordinarily dangerous, and just going at it on your own. This is a terrible idea. If you're listening to this, don't do that. And that saw made me pretty nervous. And I was finishing grad school, and my parents said, we'd help you buy something for your shop, for grad school. And I said, oh, could you help me buy one of these new saws they have coming out that will stop if it hits your finger? Because I'm a musician, and I don't play out anymore, but I still play. And the idea of losing a finger has always been completely terrifying to me. And so they helped me buy my first saw stop that I'm looking at over in the corner there. And that was the only high-end tool I had for like a decade. Everything else was more affordable because I was an English teacher. I didn't have any money, so I got some help buying that one saw. And I really only bought it because of the safety. And then I got it and I thought, oh my God, that Craftsman was a piece of garbage. I couldn't believe it. I just have the contractor saw, the 10-inch contractor saw, which is a wonderful saw that's also pretty compact and runs on 110 household current. I've never wanted to upgrade. I've always been perfectly happy with it. So that was the only fancy tool I had for a really long time. Just recently, I've upgraded a couple of things. I did get rid of that Harbor Freight lathe, and I bought a Laguna. That was my little reward for myself last year. I kind of hit some goals I wanted to hit, and so I bought a nice lathe because that Harbor Freight, man, that thing was done. I had ridden that horse as far as it was going to go, and there was nothing left for it but a bullet and a grave. So I had to get rid of that thing. And The main thing with me has been starting out as a power tool user and realizing for a lot of reasons I really didn't want to go in that direction. And my main focus is hand tools. And most of my projects on my channel, especially in the last 3 years, have been either completely hand tool or about 95% hand tool.
Yeah, and you do a great job. Make it seem very approachable. So, how do you select your hand tools? I mean, I know it's like different types of planes and everything that you can find. I'm sure you went through a decision process there. How do you pick your hand tools?
The biggest thing for me is accessibility. I really want to be on the videos using tools that I feel like people can get their hands on. So I've used a lot of antique Stanleys, which a lot of folks can still find at flea markets. I got a cough, hold on.
Okay, I think you're still on mute.
Oh, there we go. I'm still getting used to this microphone. There's one for the blooper reel. For a while, I was finding tools on Amazon. I was finding the cheapest hand plane on Amazon, some of the cheapest saws on Amazon, and making projects with those. And it was really to prove a point, which isn't that those tools were good. They're not. They suck. But if you want to, you can buy a $20 hand plane off Amazon and you can get some woodwork done. And that might be the beginning. And for a lot of folks, the beginning is what matters because they'll get that enthusiasm and they'll keep going. So, I mean, I'm a tool collector too. Here, can you go to the widescreen for a second?
Yeah.
So I thought I brought a fun tool because I wanted to show one. This is a hand plane that I just got. This is a Danish hand plane and it's a jack plane. And it would actually be used at a sit-down bench for processing rough lumber. So you'd sit like this and on a narrow bench. And then if you had a really tough board, somebody else would come along and grab these front handles and yank. And that would help you get through the wood. I thought it'd be fun to bring this one on your podcast and show it a little bit. I actually have a lot of tools like this because I try to support tool makers. This was brand new, made for me by a guy who does this style of plane. And I have a lot of planes like this because I really try to support people who are making these artisanal tools. But you don't see them in my videos very often because I don't want to get away from that accessibility thing. So like I use them for myself and I collect them because I love them and I want to keep that history going. But you don't see them in my videos very much because I know most people, they're going to look at that and think, well, I can't have that, so I'm not going to do this project. My whole thing is to try and make it accessible so that people feel like they can do it.
Yeah, that is great. And I know others appreciate it too. I saw a comment in here from 4321 says, I like the fact that Rex makes the things and approaches it with teaching it to be affordable. I've never even see him use his table saw yet since I've started watching.
Yep.
So the most memorable table saw video is the one where you explained how the saw stop safety feature got engaged. Yeah. So did you heal up fine? Any nerve damage or anything, or are you good?
Oh yeah, lots of nerve damage. The nerves in that finger are toast and they're always going to be weird.
Yeah.
It always feels like I'm holding something with that finger, like there's a pebble against it. But you know, I put it straight into a spinning table saw blade. The fact that I've still got this thumb at all is fantastic. You know,
Yes.
I didn't know this, and this is one thing I am irritated about. I didn't think at the time saw stop was quite clear enough in saying you can't use anti-kickback blades. And the thing that bothered me the most is I bought the saw from a dealer and the exact same dealer who sold me the saw sold me that blade on the same day. And so I've always kind of felt like it would be smart, since they're so about safety, is if there was a little sticker on the saw that told you not to use the anti-kickback blade. And maybe if they educated the dealers a little more, because it was like the manager of the store who said, "Oh, do you want a ripping blade?" And I said, "Yes, I would love one." He said, "Great, here's an anti-kickback blade." And I was like, "Fantastic." Turns out that's not compatible with the saw, and it meant that the safety feature didn't engage as quickly as it should have. Still, I've got the thumb, so no complaints out of me. I just want to try and get that word out to people as much as I can. You know, you have to be careful. I just buy blades from SawStop now.
Yeah,
Those are guaranteed.
I think it's great that it worked at all, and didn't pull your thumb and possibly even more of your hand into the blade.
Nope, that would have been awful.
Yeah, so much can happen so quick whenever the blade is spinning thousands of times per minute. So,
you know, and that experience had a lot to do with the shift to hand tools too, because one of the things I realized was, you know, I can't do an awful lot of woodworking if you take this table saw away from me. And I had a sense that I should be able to take a handsaw, like a good quality handsaw, and make a square cut and still build stuff. But I knew I couldn't. And it seemed to me that that was a skill set that I should develop. And, you know, table saws do so many things in terms of beveling and making dados and grooves. They do a lot more than cutting. But if you're just looking to break down wood, to cut wood, even very precisely, a handsaw and a jack plane will do the exact same thing. 100% to the same level of precision, a little bit more slowly, but infinitely more safely. And at a very, very low cost too. You know, a Stanley jack plane is pretty cheap, and you can buy an old saw and fix it up. And I mean, my jack plane was $5 at a flea market, and I've bought saws for $1 that I've sharpened and fixed up. So you're looking at a very small investment, much more time, and a much bigger learning curve, and definitely some frustration as you try and fail. But once you have those skills, you've got them, and you'll have them forever.
Yeah, that's great. So what year did you get away from being a professor and become a full-time woodworker, creator?
I never want people to feel like that was an easy or quick transition. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And if I had to do it again, I couldn't. I don't, you know, I'm 42, I'm gonna be 43 in a couple months. I don't have the energy to go through that again. So 2016, my wife and I left California. I've been out there at the University of California for 4 years, and she'd been out there. She had an administrative job, and we were unhappy. We're Northeasterners. We didn't want to be in California anymore. And we moved out to Ohio because we liked it, and it was similar. We're from Connecticut, and Ohio's, you know, looks similar, and it's familiar enough. And so 2016, we moved out here, and I knew that by walking away from my academic job without having another one lined up, that was the end of me in the academic world. That's just how it works. You don't walk away from a job until you have another one. And so I knew that was the end of me being a university English teacher. What I really wanted to do was do woodwork and be on YouTube, but that seemed about as likely as moving to Mars. That seemed like completely impossible. And, you know, what happened for the next 3 years, really, until things started to pick up, was just a laborious process of slowly working my way into the industry. And a lot of it was I just happened to meet somebody on the street not long after I got here who had a wood shop, and we got to talking, and he offered me a job, part-time job in his wood shop. And I got in there and started working, and it worked out pretty well. And I moved to another shop, and I moved to another shop, and I was full-time and I was part-time, and I worked at a bunch of different places, and I started doing videos. And there was just a really long transitional period where the videos were making a little bit of money, but not nearly enough. And I was absolutely killing myself doing custom work, working for other people, doing handyman stuff for the neighbors, fixing furniture, building stairs, stuff like that. And you know, and this is all with no formal training. You know, I just had a mechanical background, and I just jumped into it, and I was fearless and ignorant. And it absolutely caused me to get into some bad situations and make some promises that I had a hard time keeping, and made a lot of mistakes. And it took 3 years and very nearly going bankrupt for my wife and I. And really just at the point where I almost couldn't make it another month, things started to pick up and the money from YouTube started to get better. And in July of 2019, and Patreon, which was really the game changer for me. In July of 2019, I did my last custom job and walked away from that. And since then, I've been full-time content.
Yeah, that's awesome. It had to be a rough transition, but I'm glad that it's working out. Thanks to your hard labor on that. I've heard you in your videos before talk about, this is not sponsored. Thanks from up Patreon. Do you have any sponsors right now? And are you ever looking to get more sponsors?
No, I've made a pledge to my viewers that my channel is going to be unsponsored forever. Okay. And I intend to live up to that. When I first got started, the only sponsors that were really out there were tool companies. And that has always struck me as an ethically questionable thing. I don't think I should be taking money from a company to recommend or talk about their products. If I like their products, I'm going to talk about them anyway. And if I'm not planning on talking about them, I shouldn't talk about them because I'm getting paid. My viewers are looking to me to tell them how to spend their limited discretionary income, and they need to know what's safe and what's dangerous. And I think what I really owe them is the most unbiased opinion I can give them, so they're not wasting money or maybe putting themselves in a dangerous situation. Now, since I started out and had that no sponsorship policy, sponsorships have changed so much. And guys like Bob at I Like to Make Stuff, he's really led the charge into getting sponsorships that just don't have anything to do with woodworking. And I think he's been brilliant at that. He gets companies like Squarespace. And I think that's a whole different model because Squarespace doesn't care what he says about woodworking. They're never going to tell him to use a different tool or a different process or push him to do something. All they care about is eyeballs. And I think the ethical situation is totally different when you're working with a company that doesn't want to exert influence on your content. If I made a video, I don't even know if SawStop does sponsorships, but if I made a video even for SawStop, a company that I really support, they would want to tell me, oh, don't do that with the saw, or do this, or talk about this. And then it's not me anymore.
Yeah. So I need to find one of the beard companies that I use their products. I need to get them as a sponsor, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you and I can get the razors we use on our heads as sponsors.
I was going to say some sort of wax, to get that shine. Yeah. Bald guys. There's got to be somebody who wants to do that. I think stuff like that. If you want to sell male grooming products, great. You're not going to endanger somebody's life and limb by selling razors on your channel, and I'll say the other part, and I'm a firm believer that everybody else on here, man, you have to run your business the way you can. If you need sponsorships to do this, and that's what allows you to keep making videos, do your thing, right? I've got a situation where I don't really have to. And the way the situation has changed with better choices about sponsorships, that's really wonderful. But also, I've seen a lot of really good videos that were kind of ruined by a 2-minute long ad read in the beginning. And it's so much worse than a commercial, like a TV commercial, because that's part of the video and it's going to be there forever. And I don't mind watching somebody mention a product and talk about it for 20 or 30 seconds, but really the 2-minute block of talking about the mattress in a box, it's so brutal. And some of my favorite creators are doing that, and it's just killing the flow of their videos. It's hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah, and it's got to kill the retention because I have to fast forward through the advertisements sometimes.
But it's a very hard business. So what people need to do to make it work, I understand. You got to do what you have to do.
Yeah, thinking back, a few years ago with what Steve Ramsey was doing with the gripper. If you remember those ads he would do,
He was so great with that.
He set the gold standard that I don't know if anybody can accomplish again, but he worked with that company to have enough freedom to do that without having the script, the handed down script from the company line that sounded so restrictive whenever I hear some creators using it. I can't criticize them because it's tough. You need those streams of income. So speaking of streams of income, other than Patreon and AdSense from YouTube, what are your streams of income due to your channel and your content?
Well, first thing is shout out to my patrons who have made it possible for me to be sponsor free and made it possible for me to go full time when I had 50,000 subscribers. So that was, much earlier than most creators get to go full time. And Patreon makes up a very significant part of my income. The other thing that's really significant is having a direct commercial relationship with my viewers. I sell plans, I sell courses, I sell obviously t-shirts and apparel and stuff like that, but mostly information. I've written 2 books and those are for sale. You can find them on Amazon. And it's just what you said with streams of income. I've got 7 or 8 streams of income that are always going, and they all fluctuate. They go up, they go down, but they add up to a good living at the end. So it's always about community and interacting with people, because a big part of my income is just selling plans, $5 and selling them one at a time. But I'm very fortunate to sell a lot of those plans. And I've had a couple of different designers. I'm in the middle of hiring somebody else now, but I have an employee where all he does is do the digital models, and we work very closely together to make those plans the absolute best they can be, the clearest and the easiest to follow. And then I try to price them as cheaply as possible, so I know that I'm just giving people overwhelming value proposition when they buy a plan from me.
Yeah, that is awesome. Appreciate that. There are a few questions, and I don't like to keep people waiting too long. They are here to ask questions and give support. So I'm going to start with Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill, who says, what are some of your business goals or plans you have coming up or are working on?
So this is something I haven't even announced yet, but except to my patrons, they know about this, but I actually have a small tool company. So my company's called Compass Rose Tools, and we're going to be releasing our first tool at the end of September, early October. So just a couple of months. We just finished manufacturing. And so we'll have a couple of different tools people can buy. And that's something I'm really excited about. And I'm always trying to grow the channel and bring more people into woodworking in different ways. So I think my biggest business goal is always to be thinking about what's that next population of people who wants to get into woodworking but doesn't, and how can I bring them in by taking some barrier away? And I don't want people to get the impression that I'm just doing that just because I want people to love woodworking. I do, but also that's where the money is. If you can take somebody who didn't feel like they could get into this craft and bring them into it, they're going to have a relationship with you that's going to allow you to make a living. So there is that teaching part, but there's also, that's how the mortgage gets paid.
So where can our viewers find more about this? Is it Compass Rose Tools?
Yeah, so that website is, we're just gonna lay back on that right now. What you want to do is just watch the YouTube channel, and I'm gonna have a video announcement in just a couple of weeks. You heard it here first. This is my first public announcement, but you're gonna see a video rolling out the first tool. It's something I'm really excited about, something I'm proud to say I invented, and that I think is gonna really make life easier for hand tool woodworkers. So we're just going to tease it a little bit right here, and then you'll find more out about it either the end of September or the first week in October.
Okay. So I don't want to spoil anything, but if somebody went to compassrosetools.com, is that you?
Is it? Yeah, Compass Rose Tools is me. Yep.
Okay, so it's a looks like a new website maybe. Yep. Compass Rose Tool Works. Is that it?
Compass Rose Tool Works. Yep.
Tools, not gadgets. I like that.
Yep.
I'm spoiling it, but
I'm spoiling it a little bit. That's all
I'm
right.
sorry.
You had me on your podcast. You're allowed to spoil things a little. It's okay.
I'm super excited that you shared that with us, and I really appreciate Sandy's question there. Jeff Dunning says, "Does your wife have a paying job?"
Yeah, she sure does. She is an educational administrator, a higher education administrator. She's been a registrar and a director of admissions, and she's one of the people who makes universities function. And without her, people like me who only know how to teach classes, there would be nobody in the class, because people like her provide the foundation that makes that go. So right now she works, I forget if it's technically full-time or technically part-time, but she has a new job that she got recently that's fewer hours. And we have a daughter, she's 9, and it allows both of us to spend more time with our 9-year-old daughter, which is a big thing. And we did, to get to the point of the question a little bit more, we did make the change about a year and a half ago to buying our own health insurance. Because my wife had been working at a job that she was unhappy with, and one of the reasons she stuck around was for health insurance. And we made the switch to having the business buy the health insurance. And just for people who are thinking about making this move, I don't mind just saying our health insurance is about the same as our mortgage. And it's much worse coverage than I ever had when I had a regular job. So that was a tough move. And that was another place where my business had to step up and make that happen. But also, now we've been going that direction now for 18 months. And it was very scary and weird at the beginning to think, wow, we're buying our own health insurance and it's not as good and there's a lot more out of pocket. And then we got used to it. And now it's just the way life is. And it's okay.
Yeah. So whether it's a video creation or opening a store down the street to sell widgets, anytime you go into business for yourself, it's got to be a little bit intimidating, but you have to go into it with a certain level of confidence, and then you got to put in the elbow grease and make it work. It's got to be some hard decisions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't interrupt.
No, I'm done.
I was just saying, my folks had a business when I was growing up, and they were always small business people my entire upbringing. And just watching them, and I worked for them for years too. They were lighting distributors. So they sold, at the time it was fluorescent lighting, to schools and businesses. And my dad's whole thing is he could go into a place and say to them, hey, you've got old style lights in here. If we upgrade to more modern lights, you're going to save this much on your energy bill, and you're going to use this much less electricity. And then they'd make the whole thing happen. That was their business. And I worked for them for years, and that gave me just a basic sense of what business was. And like a lot of other things, my first thought was, I don't want anything to do with that. Being in business looks really hard. I'm going to just have a job, and that's going to be better. And I'll be honest with you, in a lot of ways, having a job is better. And this is a little bit of a digression, but I'll go ahead. I had a creative writing teacher in college who said to my class one time, he said, if you feel like you can do anything else in your life except for be a writer, you should do it. You should only be a professional writer, or even attempt to be a professional writer, if you don't think you can do literally anything else. And I think that kind of applies to any full-time creative career. And a lot of what I do now is writing. It's a huge part of my job. And I will say that I think he was right. All things being equal, if you can have a job and be okay with your job, if you like it, or at least you can tolerate it, and you've got a 401k and health insurance and you get a steady paycheck, maybe don't get too caught up in that dream of having your own business. Maybe you want to stick with that predictable, safe thing. But then again, if you're one of those folks who just has that passion and feels like, hemmed in, feels like your job is driving you crazy and you just have to break out of it, then you should.
Yeah, and that's everybody's situation is different, and I think it's always a personal decision that I'm sure you had to consult with your wife on, and having a little one just makes it even that more challenging. We have a 10-year-old, and even at my age, and making any kind of change that affects budget, she comes into consideration. So
I would say that I think in a really big way, my family made it possible for me to do what I'm doing now. Because like I said, I burned that bridge in academia, and I knew I wasn't going to make it as a high school English teacher. That's just not in the cards for me. And the only thing that was left for me is woodworking. It was the only other thing I knew how to do. And there was a really strong feeling at that time, I have to make this work because my family is counting on me, my daughter is counting on me, and I can't make any excuses. I wanted to be a full-time creative person my whole life. That was always my ambition. And I really kind of punked out in my 20s and said, you know what, I'm going to go to graduate school and I'm going to get one of those safe jobs as a teacher. And then that didn't work. And I realized, oh my God, I'm one of those people my writing teacher was talking about. I'm one of those people who can't make it at a regular job, can't be satisfied. I have to do this. But that means I have to do it. There's no excuses. There's no nothing. If I don't do this, we're going to get our house foreclosed on. So I got to make it happen. And that's what gave me the drive to, jump into dumpsters every day, looking for wood, to make projects that, I made so many projects that literally cost $0 because I would just make them out of junk. I had a whole series that I built my own lathe, and that lathe build was 95% stuff out of dumpsters and stuff from the side of the street. I just built that out of random garbage, and I got like 5 videos out of that. And the sense of, I absolutely cannot fail. This is the last thing. That's what propelled me. And previous to that, I had done a lot of creative things in my life, and I thought I was trying really hard to make them happen. But when I look back now, I realize I was always sort of half in the game. I never gave it my full, complete effort until I did this, because I didn't have that motivation of people counting on me. So the fact that I had those responsibilities, that's a big part of what finally made this work.
Sure. Yeah. In addition to your family's dependence on you, your viewers have really responded to your content. How many people do you think have made a workbench similar to the ones that you have made, or have used your plans to make similar versions?
I'm proud to say I think hundreds of people have.
Yeah.
And that is that's probably my biggest achievement in life so far. Is I came up with a bench design based on a traditional English bench, and a lot of people have jokingly called it the no-skill workbench, but that's true. And I'm sitting at it right now. I've been working at it, every week for the last 3 years. It's a really good workbench that you don't need to be a woodworker to build the bench. You can build the bench and then become a woodworker. And I think my proudest achievement is that I've helped hundreds of people get started in woodworking from zero with this design. And even though I've got some videos that, like you said, I've got some videos that have 1 million views, and that's great. That's a great feeling. But knowing the number of people who built this bench and then they like it. And
Yeah.
I see people doing projects. I've seen people do projects on my workbench, and the projects are beyond what I can do. So in the time that I've been doing these videos, somebody made the bench and then got better than me. Love it. That's amazing.
Everybody, this is Rex Krueger. You can find his channel on YouTube. Here's the link that Sandy put in the chat. Thank you, Sandy. And we will go to our next question, because I'm hogging all the time asking questions. Why we love and support you, Rex. Sponsor free. So I think the sponsor free thing does ring true with a lot of viewers. I think a lot of people like that.
It's become part of my brand.
Yeah.
So at first, it just seemed like the right thing to do, and it also seemed like kind of a middle finger up to some of the companies that I was maybe not happy with the way they did things, saying like, I'm just not going to be sponsored. I'm never going to do a sponsorship, knowing full well none of them were interested in sponsoring me anyway. So it was, it was a little bit of that young man punk rock energy coming out at me, wanting to smash the system a little bit. But then it became part of my brand, and I've had so many people say, "Oh, well, now you could get some sponsors," and I'd say, "Yeah, but then my viewers would desert me, and I would look like the most insincere person ever, and I would have no credibility because I've said flat out, I'm not going this way, and I've built, and this is the important thing, I've built a successful business without it. I'm not scraping by. This channel is a good business. I'm not rich, but it's doing well, and I did it without sponsorships. So that pathway exists, and a lot of people, especially when I was starting out, they tried to say to me like, listen, that's the way this industry works. And I'm hardly the only person to not do sponsorships. James Wright doesn't do them. James has a wonderful channel, huge number of supporters, a really strong business, and he doesn't do sponsors either. So it's another way to do things that's completely viable.
Yeah, that's Wood by Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah, had him on the show. It was great.
Yeah, he's a great guest. He's my closest colleague on YouTube for sure. He was so supportive of me. When I first started out, he already had 50, 60,000 subscribers and did a collaboration project with me when I was a tiny little channel and really helped me get going. And we still stay close. We stay in touch. We do projects together sometimes. James has been just a rock for me, somebody I've really depended on this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. He's developed his own brand of, hand tools, projects and knowledge. And, like he was talking about, he's still learning. Like every time he sharpens a blade to a new level of sharpness, he's realized he's learned, he didn't know what sharp was. And he said it'll happen again and again, and I think that's part of the learning process.
Yeah, the learning is a constant thing, and I'm perfectly comfortable saying to people, I'm really not a very good woodworker. I'm okay. I'm not bad.
Right.
But I'm not great by a long shot. I'm not great. And the thing that I'm pretty good at is communicating to people, but I want people to see me make things, and I want them to realize my skill level. I mean, you could name 10 people on YouTube off the top of your head who are better woodworkers than me. That's not hard to find. But that's not really the point. The point is communicating and getting people to start. So I've kind of kept my skills along the beginner level because I really focus on helping people get started.
Well, you have a great skill set that many wish they could have, but I think your skill as a teacher is showing others you can do this. You don't have to start out with the $800 plane in order to flatten a surface. You can learn to do it.
No, although I've spent an awful lot of money on planes since I started this, that has happened.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, let me skip down to this question. What's your favorite collected tool?
What's my favorite? My favorite out of all of them. Hold on, I'll go grab one right now.
Okay.
It's right here.
So while we're waiting on,
we'll do two real quick.
Oh, okay.
We'll do two. So this is my day-to-day smoothing plane, and it's super collectible. It's a Stanley Sweetheart plane from around 1927. It's still got the decal on the handle, which makes it even more collectible. And the best part about this is it was in my parents' basement. just sitting on a shelf. My dad had a couple of old hand planes that he had just come across. He doesn't do woodwork at all. He keeps one around for doing a little, household stuff. And he just gave it to me. And I was like, Dad, do you have any idea what this is? And he said, Rex, I don't care what it is. Take it. Go make something. And this is no exaggeration. It's the finest smoothing plane I own. I use it every day. I love it. And it didn't cost me anything. And my dad gave it to me, which really means a lot to me. And the second one I'll show you is this mallet right here. I have a really popular video on I call it the advanced joiner's mallet. And that video went great. And I've made a couple copies of it and everything. And one of my viewers from Australia messaged me and said, hey, I make copies of your mallet from a local Australian wood called Jarrah. And would you like one? And I said, I'd love one, but I insist on paying for it. So I paid him, full retail. And he sent it to me. And I believe his name was Pete Eccleston, who made this mallet. And when I first got it, I thought, oh, he didn't get it quite right. It's too small. And then I realized the timber is so much heavier than what I was used to. And he got the balance just right. And the handle's really good. And I use this mallet all the time. And it came from Australia. And it's even more exciting because I made the video that inspired it. And then that guy turned around and made a mallet that's probably better than the one I made. And it ended up being my day-to-day mallet. I love it. So Pete, if you're out there, your mallet is still fantastic. I still use it all the time. And Jarrah is this thing's like iron. I could pound nails with this if I wanted to. So there's two of my favorites.
Yeah, I think I know the video you're talking about. You bought an original mallet at a fair or something for like $5, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I remember you making that duplicate, that copycat, that you worked out all the procedures and all the techniques, and yeah, it's a neat video, and it's neat that he took that basic design and tweaked it.
He ran with it. He really did.
That's awesome. So, thank you, Alien Leader, for that question. That gave us some couple of good examples. Seaworthy Learning says, where can we get some Rex Krueger music?
I get asked this question all the time, and ladies and gentlemen, you have to trust me when I say there are no hidden gems in the music that I've made in the past. I was a teenager and a man in my early 20s when I was playing in bands, and I was playing, loud punk rock, and I was in a ska band for a while, and I was in an unlistenable instrumental band for a while, and nobody's missing out on anything there. I think the thing that, that really might happen down the way is I might decide to get back into making music again, and the music that I'd make now would be a lot better. I had the opportunity long after I stopped performing music, I had the opportunity to learn a lot more about music because I was already in school anyway. And so I started taking music classes in the music department and learn about theory and composition. And it's ironic because I learned about all that stuff. I learned how to read music, and I learned about voice leading and chord theory and all of that stuff long after I had walked off the stage for the last time in my life. And now I look back and I think, wow, a lot of that music I made, not super great, especially the music that I wrote. I was very fortunate to play on songs that other people wrote that were very good, and I'm very proud to have contributed. But a lot of the music I wrote during that period was not good. If I made music again now, and I'm a more mature person with a lot more idea of what I'm doing, it would be better. And if I get a minute spare time, I'll try to make some music, but I'm so busy with the business. It's somewhat hard to imagine that happening.
It's hard to find time. You have to make it.
Yeah.
That's a good question though. Janessa Lynan says, "Hey
my
Rex,
patrons, how you doing?"
That is awesome. I figured as much from the comment in there. I was like, I bet Janessa came over here just for Rex, and I do hope that those joining us tonight for Rex will consider subscribing, support our channel, and come back. We have some other great interviews coming up in the future.
Well, your back catalog is great too. You've had David Chudo, you've had Steve Ramsey, Mark Spagnolo. I mean, didn't know your podcast until you reached out to me, but I looked back on your back catalog. There's some gold in there. And I
Yeah.
think people should definitely go and check out those back episodes.
Thank you. And if you're getting any enjoyment out of this, feel free to like this video as well. So thank you for that. Mackenzie Lumbermill, Sandy, again says, with many income streams, building a business, making money, what advice would you give a business to focus on?
Give the people what they want. Don't give them what you want. A lot of people think that doing YouTube is doing whatever you feel like and just setting up some cameras. And that's not the game. The game is finding a middle ground between what you like and what interests you and what interests your viewers. And what you're doing is you're finding interests and you're finding needs and you're finding pain points for your viewership. If you're in the educational space, which I am, I make educational videos. What's causing people pain? If you can take away that pain, you're going to make money. And that's really the game right there. So I see a lot of people getting going in YouTube, and what they feel like they can do is make videos about whatever interests them, and people are going to want to watch that, and maybe that'll work. The other side that you can't get stuck on is you can't make all of your decisions based on, well, I think other people will like this. You need to have a passion for what you're doing too. So, you know, there's more than one way to be accessible with your woodworking content. Steve Ramsey does every bit as well as I do with an all machine tool approach. And he's gotten definitely more people woodworking than I have because he's got more profile and he's been at it longer and he's a spectacular teacher. So you can give people what they want and what they're interested in while also doing it your way. And it's fine-tuning that balance of what's the demand and how can I satisfy that demand in a way that's authentic to me and I can bring some of my personality to. That's going to give you a business with some longevity, and you're probably going to make money.
That's some great advice. Find what is causing people heartburn and provide them a solution. And if you can do that while pursuing your passion at the same time, then you'll be happy and you'll be able to help an audience and grow quickly.
Yeah, I admit
I
I
like
was
that.
only like a little bit interested in hand tools when I started my channel, but I got so much feedback on that stuff. I ended up going for several years. I was 100% hand tool. And that was all audience feedback. Those were the videos that were doing well. And I thought, well, I'm interested in this, so I'll get better at it. I'll improve and I'll give people what they're interested in.
Yeah, that's great. Let's get to Damon. Damon Barber is the Sawdust Shop. I'm a new sub as of tonight. What kind of builds do you specialize in, and do you make Christmas gifts for family? If not, what kinds of things have you made in the past? No spoilers.
So what I specialize in myself is early American country furniture. I make reproductions of furniture pieces that would have been made usually in rural environments and usually by people who weren't full-time craftspeople. So I'm really fascinated by a type of woodworker who would have been called a country carpenter. And it was somebody who had sort of medium skills and kind of okay tools and maybe worked out in the barn in a not great workshop. And if that sounds familiar, it's because the country carpenter of the 1800s was so much like the hobby woodworker today. And so I specialize in making the things that those people would have made because they're very accessible. They're made of common woods you can get your hands on. The designs are useful and they've proven their value over and over again. So that's what I mostly make. So things like linen chests, milking stools, benches, and a lot of stuff for the workshop. And I do some turning on the lathe. And then as far as Christmas gifts, I do. And I actually have this thing with my nephew. He's 9 years old. And every Christmas, I build him a different weapon out of wood. So I've made him a fireman's axe, a Viking axe, a wooden sword. I made him a flail, a ball and chain with a real forged chain. I collaborated with a blacksmith buddy of mine to do the chain, and I turned the spikes for the spiked ball on the lathe, and I turned the ball on the lathe and all that. And that was last year's Christmas present. So I still do something for my nephew every Christmas where I make him a wooden weapon. And my brother tells me that they're the only toys my nephew plays with all year long. They're the only ones he doesn't get sick of, which also makes me really proud.
That is very rewarding. Whenever you make something and you know it's put to use. I think that's great. So Damon, thank you for that question. And our poll question for tonight was, were you subscribed to Rex Krueger before tonight's live stream? And I put the link to Rex's channel in the question. So 77% of 39 votes said yes, they were, which means 23% were not. And I know YouTube is a big world, but Damon has joined the leagues of people who are following and subscribed to Rex. So please put it in the comments if you are also new subscriber to Rex's channel. I'd appreciate it.
Oh,
and I'm sure Rex appreciates the subs.
I do. I was just going to say that. I appreciate anybody who wants to sub tonight. It's wonderful. I still really, really appreciate seeing that subscriber number go up. These careers in YouTube, they don't last forever. You know, there's an expiration date on this sort of thing. And I've already been at it for a while. So when I see that number go up a little bit, I think, all right, I'm still in the game. And it really helps to keep me motivated.
Yeah. Whenever you subscribe to a channel, one thing I've noticed is you need to watch at least one video so that YouTube does not remove the subscription. So it's happened to me several times where I subscribed, meant to go back and watch a video and then did not right away. And within 2 days, I was unsubscribed from that channel whenever I looked it back up. So I think it's something relatively new, the last couple of months that I've noticed on YouTube. So if you subscribe tonight, please go watch at least one video, and you'll stay subscribed, or at least from my observation. Next question from Busted Knuckle Woodworks. I love the name.
We've all done it.
Can you talk a little bit about the production gear setup? Camera, lenses, lights, editing?
Yeah, I do all of my filming on Panasonic GA7. Nope, that's my lathe. I can't remember the name of the camera. It's a camcorder. It's a very basic camcorder. It doesn't take different lenses. It just has it has a single generic lens. I just recently bought a much nicer Canon digital video camera, but I haven't used it yet because it's so much more complicated than what I'm used to. It intimidates me. I have LED panel lights. They're on me right now. They were inexpensive ones off of Amazon. I use a battery-powered lavalier mic. Filming is very technical, and it's quite difficult. And there are so many aspects to this business. I've never been able to put the time into learning a lot about filming. And I know that's a deficit. And some people's videos look better than mine because they have nicer cameras and they switch lenses. And I'm always working towards that a little bit. But on the other hand, in the whole time I've been doing this, I've only ever owned 2 cameras. I owned a really crappy Canon when I first got started. And then I owned the Panasonic that I've been shooting with for almost 4 years. And it was like a $300 camera. So I don't think anybody, especially in the maker space, no one should feel like they can't get into this game because of gear. My buddy Brad, who does the channel Brad's Workbench and Brad's Wood Turning, he's got 20,000 subscribers on his channel. And I'm pretty sure he still does everything on his iPhone, like shooting, editing, all of it. He does the whole channel on his iPhone. I'm not kidding. So nobody should worry about that. I have an editor, Nate, who is a wonderful guy. He's been with me for 4 years now. I met him just because he took a woodworking class with me, and I was impressed by him, and I thought that he was smart and he had a good personality, and he came and worked with me one day in the shop, and I said, "Have you ever edited film before?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Do you want to learn how?" And he said, "Yes." And I took him upstairs and I showed him what I knew about filming, about editing, and he got started on it. And since then, he has just surpassed me by orders of magnitude. Nate is 100 times the editor I ever was. And I don't even have editing software on my computer right now. I literally can't edit anything without him. And I've been so happy and fortunate to offload that part onto him. One thing I've learned from YouTube is that I'm not a super multi-talented person who knows how to do all these different things. At the end of the day, I'm an okay woodworker, and I'm pretty good at speaking and writing. And those are my core skills. I'm an okay woodworker, and I'm a pretty good presenter. And for everything else, I need help. And I've been not shy about going to get that help. And that's what's helped my business grow, is trying to get some good people in to cover the things that I'm never going to be good at.
Yeah, that is great that you were able to mentor someone to the point that you were able to hand off a task to them, and they are doing a better job at it than you. And I'm not saying that as a slight. I hope I'm saying it
I suck at
correctly.
it. You can say it. Terrible.
So, but that's a great part of leadership. You know, some of the best leaders I've ever worked with, whether it, be it a financial institution or what have you, they were not the best at every task in the office. They knew how to delegate out to the right people and help develop them without having the full skill set themselves for every component of the office. So I think the same thing applies.
Doing YouTube has only highlighted for me that my core skills are what they've always been. They're things that have to do with language and communication. That's really the only stuff I'm very good at. And everything else I need help with.
That's awesome. And thank you, Busted Knuckle Woodworks, for the question. That was great. Folks, we do have 7 more questions in the queue.
Why don't we knock out a few more?
I'm going to ask our guests if we can go through these. Please don't add any more because I know he'd like to get back to family. So how big is your shop?
So my old shop was just my basement that I just moved out of very recently. That shop was 20 by 40, which sounds huge, but I shared it with so much stuff like the chimney and bits of the foundation and the washer and dryer and stuff that ended up being not a very big shop. My new shop, the whole building is 1,700 square feet. And what you see in the videos is about a third of that. The room that I've painted white, I don't remember the exact measurements. It's 25 by 40, something like that. And that's a third of the space. And it helps me to keep it tidy in here, keeping this space small. And then the back room, which is much larger, can be chaotic and can have junk, and I can move things out there to keep them out of the shot. So my new space is very big, but if I weren't making videos, it would be much smaller. You can make furniture. If you have enough space to put a bench and a chest of tools, you can make furniture. My space is big because I make videos.
Thank you, Busted Knuckles. That leads into Ralph Ambrosio? Hey, I apologize if I said it wrong. Mr. Ralph says, are you completely moved in yet? Are you still happy with that new space?
I'm super happy with the new space. Excuse me. It's given me better work-life balance because I don't have work at home anymore. I come into the shop and I work, and then when I go home, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm about 99% moved in. I've got maybe 4 or 5 boxes. Actually, right before this podcast, I was taking stuff out of boxes and put it on shelves. It's tough because once you get to the point where the space is functional, the drive is to get back to making money. And then you never really finish moving in. So I'm trying really hard to keep the focus and keep unpacking.
There you go. That's great. Hugh McMath from McMath Woodwork says, have you ever built your own tools?
I can tell that Hugh is not currently a subscriber to my channel because sometimes I feel like that's all I do. I've made many, many, many of my own tools, and it's one of the things that fascinates me so much about early woodwork is 17th, 18th, 19th century woodworkers could make most of their own tools, and it was considered part of their training. They'd go to the blacksmith for the blades and the other metal bits, and they would make everything else themselves. Specialized tool makers didn't even exist until a couple hundred years ago because the woodworker would do all of that stuff himself. So I've tried to follow in that tradition, especially by showing other people how they can make tools and then trying to use things like lamination techniques and modern glues to make it easier. And so you don't need as much skill to make your own tools.
Yeah. Janessa says, I made my version of the quick stack workbench. That's very impressive. 4321 Woodworking says, who is your favorite YouTuber in the woodworking realm and not in the woodworking realm?
My favorite YouTuber in the woodworking realm is Richard McGuire. He goes by the English Woodworker, and he doesn't have a huge channel because he decided not to play that game, but he's an incredibly skillful guy who uses a small kit of tools to make wonderful furniture, and he was a professional workbench builder for years. He had a company building custom workbenches, and so I think he's built hundreds of benches. And whenever he does make a video, it's solid gold. I just love Richard's work, and really I kind of aspire to be as much like him as I can be in my own work. Off YouTube, and the funny thing is that most of the people I know who I admired in woodworking, since I started, they've begun YouTube channels. So I think the guy that I would be really tempted to say is Peter Follansbee. Peter almost single-handedly rediscovered 17th century furniture, which is a style of furniture made out of green wood, split directly from the tree, joined together using mortise and tenon joints with no glue. Very small toolkit, very beautiful, incredibly strong furniture. And I'm sure he would object to me saying this, but he almost recreated it single-handedly and then became an expert in it and builds it full-time. And he's just an absolute inspiration, an incredible guy. But a couple, maybe a year ago, he started a YouTube channel. So now he's on here too. And so it's hard for me to think of a woodworker who's not on YouTube at this point. They kind of all are. Roy Underhill doesn't have a YouTube channel, and Roy is a super great woodworker.
Okay. Who's your favorite YouTube channel that's not in woodworking niche?
My favorite maker channel by far is Jimmy DiResta. Jimmy is a huge inspiration to me, and it shows you how far a channel can evolve. I got into this trying to be like Jimmy. That was the idea, to be somebody who made crazy, exciting, artistic things in every material imaginable, and instead I ended up being the hand tool reproduction furniture guy. So yeah, he's my favorite. I still watch his videos and listen to his podcast, and I still think he's a really inspiring guy. I've gotten to meet him a couple times, and he's always super nice. He's just a great dude.
Yeah, I met Jimmy at Workbench Con, and I've still got to arrange for him to come on do an interview.
You'll love him. He's a great interview too.
He's a great guy to hang around with. Just calm and just awesome guy. Let's go to our next question. We just did that one. Why do you do every video as a premiere? Is there some advantage to that on YouTube, or is it for fun? I've caught some, but they are often during work hours and enjoy the chat interaction.
He just answered his own question. The chat interaction is wonderful. It makes it an event in people's week. It's almost every Wednesday at 2:30. I premiere the video. I'm always there. Chat with people. And then, it gives you a huge bump with the algorithm, because if you have a successful premiere and even 300 or 400 people are there during the premiere, well, As soon as the video is done playing for the first time, you've got 400 views. And that tells the algorithm that it's pretty good. My videos don't get huge numbers compared to some other people in the makerspace, but I very rarely get fewer than 50,000 for a video. And a lot of them don't do better than that. That's really average, but they rarely do less. And I think the premiere function has a lot to do with that consistency. It tells the algorithm the video's got something going, and that gets it shown to more people.
Awesome. Hugh from McMath Woodworks says, do you have any favorite books and any pertaining to woodworking or business?
I mean, everything I do is books. Almost everything you see on my channel came out of a book. I own 300 or 400 woodworking books. And if I hear of a woodworking book, especially an older one that I don't have, I just immediately go online and buy it. Especially the older ones, which are just, they're gold. If you're doing hand tool woodwork and you get books from that era, when that's all there was, they're going to be amazing. Make a Chair from a Tree by Jay Alexander is a phenomenal book. It was reissued by Lost Art Press pretty recently, so you can get it, and it's exactly what the title says. It is how to chop down a tree and end up with a chair. And I really can't imagine a more revolutionary book than that one.
That's incredible. And R.A. Charlie Guy says, what plane do you recommend someone to start with to learn, and what planes should one have in their shop for beginning to finishing projects?
It's really easy. You really need 3 planes. You need number 5, which is a little bigger than a number 4, so it's a little bit longer than this one. You need a number 4, and you need a plane for rough stock removal. So it doesn't have to be like this one, but you can see this plane has a wide mouth and the iron has a curve to it. And there are many names for this style of plane. It could be called a jack plane, a 4 plane, or a scrub plane. But the point is, you need one plane that's super aggressive and will take off a lot of wood. People get frustrated with hand planes because they think, oh, I'm going to take this plane and I'm going to plane down this board and take 1/8 of an inch off this big board of oak. If you do that with a fine finishing tool like this one, you're going to be at it all day. You need one plane that gets a lot of material off fast. You need a longer plane that'll flatten things out. And then you need a nice quality small plane to give you that final finish. If you have those 3, you can build anything.
Awesome. So, Rex, if you, in closing, if you had to tell our audience one thing to inspire them, what would it be?
I would tell them that, you can do woodworking. These were jobs. People went into these as jobs, and people who did woodworking for a living, they weren't fine artists. They weren't talented people. They were regular, everyday people who went into a trade. It was a job. You did your apprenticeship. You learned how to do it. You did it. It wasn't high status. Nobody thought it was magical. They weren't people who, by and large, got the kind of respect we give them today. They were just everyday folks who took up the trade and practiced it to get paid. When you think about it that way, you realize that if you've got 2 hands, or maybe even 1 hand, who knows, you can probably pick up some tools and get to it. The most important thing to think about is that idea of perfection that people chase. Like, I want that perfect dovetail and things like that. That's a new idea. That's not something that people were talking about during the heyday of great furniture. People like Chippendale and the Sheraton style that are so sought after today, those folks weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for beauty, but they were business people. And they made furniture at a standard that the client would accept and pay for. And that's what they cared about. So this whole notion of beautiful, perfect dovetails, flawless gloss finishes, you can be into that if you want to. You're welcome to. Or you can skip that and focus on making things that please you and please your family and things that work. If you make something that works and somebody uses it every day, then it's good. And that's all you need to worry about.
That's awesome, Rex. Thank you so much for coming on and being here. You're an awesome guest. You have an awesome channel. For anybody watching this on replay, if you haven't subscribed already, go over to Rex's channel, check it out. Be looking for the Compass Rose tools coming out soon. Watch Rex's channels for more details on that. Over there, I expect that it's going to be tools, not gadgets.
It's going to be. You're right. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, if you're not subscribed to this channel right now, you need to hit that subscribe button. You need to go back and look at the back catalog of this podcast, because most of the big names in woodworking are here. If you want to hear your heroes, this is a place where you can do it. And I tell everybody, if you enjoy listening to a podcast, you better find a way to support it a little bit, because most people make these podcasts just out of the goodness of their heart. And they don't make any money at it. And you got to throw them some support if you want them to keep making the show.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for being here. You're the best viewers on YouTube. I appreciate you very much. But for right now, I hear my wife calling. I got to go.
You know there ain't another girl like her in the city. No, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. I feel this way, but I'm the ride, she's driving insane. And don't you know you oughta pump the brakes? I can't tell you why don't you let it go. I'm the line and finally I'ma let you know you're somewhere in between my legs. Hey, you know there ain't another girl like her in the city. Yeah, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. Well, I can't believe I rode so long. With this whole time you riding me wrong. Don't you know you oughta take a risk, try your best, give it to me straight, and don't deny your reply. I don't wanna wait. We're at the end of the road. It's time to let go of everything. There ain't another girl like her in the city. No, you know she looks so good, but she ain't so pretty. So leave me alone before I end it up here on the phone with another.
saw that there was a gap in the market.
I do think it's important. As much as I'm not really a fan of saying having the avatar behind the camera, I do think it helps to imagine that you're actually talking to somebody who will be watching the video. Sometimes it's easy to forget that you see numbers of people watching, but you forget that these are actual people watching your video on their phone or on their TV or wherever. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.